Welcome, everyone. I'm Amy Seeley, president of Seeley Test Pros and LEAP, helping students to succeed on all kinds of tests from 8th grade to grad school throughout Ohio.
And I'm Mike Bergen, president of Chariot Learning, helping students with Test School and Life based out of Rochester, New York.
Between the two of us today, we have over 60 years of experience at the highest levels of the test preparation and supplemental education industries.
We both love to talk and learn about the latest issues in education, testing, and admissions. So let's get down to tests and the rest. The awesome sponsor we want to spotlight today is ScoreSmart. First, let's meet our special guests, Sonya Muthalia and Neill Seltzer. We're so glad to see you two again. Welcome.
We are delighted and proud to be here.
It's always a pleasure to do the podcast with you guys.
The pleasure is ours, and it's not just because the two of you are longtime friends of the show. You've both been on the show before. Neill, you spoke about avoiding the pageant approach to college admission. Sonya, you gave us lots of insight into success in computer-based testing. You both came on to talk about the new SAT test specifications. So it's not like you're strangers. And as a matter of fact, we've even spoken about ScoreSmart before, but that's not required listening for people. They can go back after the fact. Let's talk now about ScoreSmart as if we hadn't spoken about it before. Please begin with the story behind ScoreSmart.
ScoreSmart actually started as conversations within the NTPA. It was, Neill and I met at a Test and the Rest Summit. We were arguing at one of the breakout rooms and
we're still arguing. No, 3 years later, it's still going strong.
So I met Neill during one of the Test and the Rest summits, and he was at that point working with Mindprint. Obviously, I was quite interested in the Mindprint learning assessment, and we just started talking. And just through conversations, we started figuring out that there's so many different ways to analyze reports which haven't even been thought of. And the reason it's not being thought of is because you can't capture time per question. And so many, I would say, aspects of a student's testing is dependent on time per question. And that led us to trying to make better analytics for the test, which eventually was why ScoreSmart was born.
I haven't thought about it in ages, but we started back in the pencil and paper testing world, and we were going to launch an app because we thought we had a better way to capture time per question on a pencil and paper test. And while we were working on that thing, College Board came out with their announcement that they were going digital. And the first thing we thought was, all right, like, that's it. The idea is dead. We're over. And then we thought, well, no, wait a minute. Let's just make a better testing engine.
Yeah, the idea actually found its full potential because the two of you got in really right. You were already ready to begin when College Board announced that they were going digital, right?
Well, when we met Sonya, right, Mike, that was back when international testing, everything was on a computer. Yes. And that's why she was always promoting computer testing. And those were our conversations.
That's right.
And so therefore, this was just a natural genesis into it. But correct me if I'm wrong, you guys or ScoreSmart have really coined the term part-time, right? Which is about tracking the amount of time a student might be taking on a question, which really is, we're finding with the new SAT especially, that matters greatly. And we didn't necessarily even see that prior to this new digital test.
Amy, I have seen Neill's workings. Neill was working on this concept for 10 years. I have seen his hand-drawn figures from 2014 and 2012. And literally we put those
Neill
things
Seltzer,
together
the visionary.
It was amazing how he had worked this through. And this is in the non-AI world, obviously, without the algorithms and all of those. So we created our own algorithm. And I think part-time is so essential for any tutor, for any student, but definitely for tutors who want to gain momentum and efficiency and get their results faster. Part-time is a game changer.
I started this when I was working on when the GRE first went from paper and pencil to the digital GRE, and seeing the kinds of new information you can capture as soon as the test goes online and stuff that you just could never see in a paper and pencil format. Now that it's gone online, everyone's capturing time per question, as well they should, because you can, and it's an important metric. But what we've realized is that time per question by itself doesn't actually tell you anything. You know, if a student spends a minute 15 on an algebra question, for some kids that's a victory. For some kids that's a train wreck. Depends on what score the kid's going after, who the kid is, how hard that question is. It's got to be contextualized in order to make it meaningful. And that's where ScoreSmart came in, is figuring out, okay, what's an appropriate amount of time based on this student's peers for each individual question. And then it's it's almost, I think of it as sort of a where there's smoke, there's fire issue. You can see where the kid is getting hung up on a question, and not necessarily where the student's spending a lot of time, because sometimes that's just a function of how hard is the question. Mm-hmm. But where is the kid spending too much time, according to who the student is and how hard is that question? And if you see a student getting hung up on particular areas, you know there's still work to be done, regardless of whether the kid actually got that question right or that question wrong. And so you've got this whole new window into what's actually happening on test day. And for me, as a tutor, I think really for both of us, that was catnip, being able to actually see what's going on in the kids' heads a little bit.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Is part-time just a metric that we can apply to the SAT, or do you apply that to other tests? Again, like ScoreSmart began right when the SAT went digital. So obviously a lot of people think about you as a provider of quality SAT exams, but you do more than just SAT, right?
So ScoreSmart, at least for the US market, is known for the SAT, but we always also had the digital ACT as per the international format. Because as you know, the ACT went digital in 2018. So we always did have that. And to answer your question about the part-time can be captured for any test, which is in the digital format where you can capture time. So if you can capture time per question, our algorithm can calculate the part-time for that particular test.
Yeah, so we are applying, to your question, Mike, we're applying part-time to digital SAT, to the current existing online ACT,
the legacy
to the enhanced ACT, to
yes.
ISEE. We're applying it to SHSAT. I mean, it's relevant everywhere.
Well, it's worth noting, right? So many of our tests now are becoming available in a digital format like that. Yeah. And Sonya was sort of the one years ago of like, yeah, this is where it's all going, right? To computer testing. And so I think what's kind of interesting in this industry is that many of us really have always sort of put our stake on using officially released material by the testing companies. And what I think has really been a kind of a paradigm shift in the industry is the fact that there just aren't those official materials available like they were in the past. So one of the things that I think is amazing is just being able to then find a platform that is able to do a lot of different things, like tracking different metrics in a way that we couldn't before, because we would have said, oh, we need to use this paper test because it's official. Now it's like, no, we're getting access to a lot more information. I know my struggle recently was thinking about, having a student take a paper ACT just because they were going to take it in the paper modality, knowing that if they were to take that test on a platform like ScoreSmart, they'd have so much more data about their performance, where now there's a shift, I think, in how we think about the benefit of something having to be an official test in its modality of administration.
So, Amy, even we do agree that the gold standard is definitely the test making companies, and we wouldn't argue on that. But now, even if you want to see the enhanced ACT, we do not have a full length practice test. The test is going to be administered from April onwards, where we don't have a full length practice test. And I know there is a lot of conversations, especially in the tutor community, saying that, you shouldn't trust a third party test. But this is the way I see it. Right now, even ACT is telling us that just practice on the old papers because the questions aren't changing. It's just going to become shorter. It's the same test online. It's not adaptive. So even if you practice on a paper-based test, you are getting practice for the online version. What we are trying to add is we are just trying to add a few layers to that. We want to give you the same UI UX that you're going to see. We want to give you the same experience. We want to make sure that when you are going through the sections, it is a full length test with the relevant break, with the scale score. Are we saying that it's going to be exactly the scaling that we see on test day, obviously no one knows the scaling. But this is an informed decision that we've taken by making sure that we had the right kind of ACT content people working with us and advising us. So I agree that third party tests kind of, those tests are malign, but let's see why the entire purpose of this is to give practice to the student in the right environment.
We do actually sometimes think of ourselves as like the old blue book, or the red book, the official guide, just a hell of a lot bigger, a hell of a lot better, with a hell of a lot more insight. But that actually ties into there's another significance to the fact that we started digital really early, in fact, before the SAT even went digital. And because we were doing it back then, along the way, we've gathered thousands and thousands of data points. And the significance of that, when we come to, all right, our third-party tests good enough? Well, if you've just AI'd your way into a test, the short answer is no, it stinks, because the AI is not there yet. But the longer answer is that when you want to create a high-quality test, whether you're College Board or ACT or a company like us, you need to base it on real, actual data. And the fact that we've been live for as long as we have means that we've actually captured that data and we put it back into our feedback loop. We use it to recalibrate our test. It's like the process of refining a test, what we found, in fact, never ends. We're still revising some of our early tests right now based on feedback that we got from students walking out of the March test and the new Blue Book tests. And then we also work really hard to calibrate our tests very closely to the real test, but we actually want them to be just a little bit harder than the actual test. Because, as we like to say, from a tutoring standpoint, and we are tutors at heart, we want happy surprises on test day, not unhappy surprises.
It's definitely coming through that you both approach this challenge from the perspective of tutors, educators. You're thinking about the tools that you need for success. I also have it, you mentioned AI, I have it on independent authority that you actually retain real human beings to construct your items.
Well, we like to say that we are dating AI. We're just not married to the AI.
That's good.
But the AI isn't there yet in terms of crafting a scored test. Yeah, there's places where it can help and speed the process a little bit, but you still need humans to there's just too many layers and subtleties to a well-crafted question. But even once that question has been crafted, we run biserial point correlations on every single question item to make sure that it is in fact performing correctly. It's not just a human thing; it's also a data thing. It's not just imitating a question that sounds like an SAT question. It's then got to get refined and put back into the mix.
And I feel AI can get, at least as of now, can generate good questions. But I feel making a test, there's an art to it. There's a certain science to what percentage of questions should come from certain categories. And a good content writer can do wonders with that.
The content writer is the starting point. And then it's really data and repetition and revision.
So when we talk about usage, because obviously you guys have been doing this for a very long time in terms of offering an online test for ACT, tell us about what are some of the outcomes you're seeing with student testing, and can you share anything about how many testers have you had using your platform at this point in time?
What are we, Sonya, north of 60,000?
Yeah, on an average, I think every month we have around 2,200 testers test on a platform.
And how helpful is it to have lots of testers on a platform when you're trying to develop or iterate?
Oh, it's critical. It's absolutely critical. Otherwise, you're just writing a question that sounds right, which again, decent place
like a vacuum.
Start.
You're like operating in a vacuum when you have so few students taking your stuff.
There's no way to assemble a statistically valid section without data.
Yeah.
Just, period, full stop. Now, I'll tell you just because I think it's interesting for this audience, one thing we struggle with is that our users, and we're now up to about 200 companies, are they tend to be, and it's because this is who we like to work with, are the elite, highly discerning companies. But the net result of that is that they tend to have very high scoring
It's
students.
skewing a lot of your higher scores,
And that
right?
totally
Sure,
messes up
absolutely.
our data. Like we need to factor that in when we're looking at difficulty.
So you're trying to
and
reach
validity.
less discerning or less qualified
Well, no,
educators.
what you're-
Well, we
Neil?
don't have
No,
anyone in
we
our
just-
database who's
Yeah.
scoring a 350. you
Right.
know?
What you're saying, no, but in terms of that's interesting, right? Because I can fully disclose, like I hosted a, ACT at a school with a very diverse population, and I was very happy to contribute that very average or below average data.
and we were so happy to have that data.
your
Exactly.
platform. Full disclosure, right?
So Neil, based on what you just said, how many of your users are direct to consumers, meaning just people find ScoreSmart and they use your platform versus educators?
Yeah, Sonya and I we are product people at heart. We are terrible marketers. So
I wouldn't
in fact,
say that.
the bulk of ScoreSmart really is B2B. It's
Yeah.
discerning
it's more than
tutoring
90%
companies.
is B2B.
We haven't really touched the retail market yet. We know we should, but it's a whole different thing.
So then you're really, I mean, is it fair to say that you're designed to support educators?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, Amy is asking what are the outcomes? And my first thought was outcomes for whom? Outcomes for the company and their brand and their position in the market, outcomes for tutors who want better data, or outcomes for students who need more reliable and realistic practice. Those are three very different constituencies, all of whom have outcomes when using our platform.
In fact, I would say ScoreSmart, nearly 60% of the platform currently was developed by our initial users and the feedback that we got. Tutors who had charter school contracts, and then they needed some admin reports, they needed some school reports. So we created these 40 odd school reports that were required, and then all the tutoring companies started using them. So a lot of it has developed because of our initial, I say, OG users and all the feedback, amazing feedback that they gave us. And that's exactly what it is. It's a platform for tutors.
Yeah. I mean, we really like following, like we get requests all the time. Oh, could you do this? Could you do that? And I love it because if it's relevant to company A, it's probably relevant to company B, C, and D as well. And so it's, like, how do we make your life as a tutoring company easier, more efficient, and more effective so you can go to market more effectively? And that's all comes directly back from creating tools based on user feedback, and our users are companies.
Fantastic. So I know we spoke so much about ScoreSmart, who you support, what you're doing. I think you teased that you will be releasing an enhanced ACT very soon.
Oh, more than just one.
Yeah. How many do you plan on releasing?
The first one will be released first week of April.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be followed by another 3 tests in a couple of weeks.
Phenomenal. You're going to be
But
releasing
also,
more
the first one
ACTs
is-
than ACT.
So the ACT is going to be free. The first ACT that we release is going to be free because we know there's utter chaos right now with tutors, with students not being able to understand what they're going to see on test day. So we are going to release a free ACT that anybody and everybody can use.
Even the ACT themselves don't have a fully end-to-end user experience for a release test. In fact, we haven't seen it anywhere.
Right.
So kids are going to be able to come in and sit down and take a test as if it's test day. Same tools, same interface, mirrored content, and take a complete end-to-end test. And we're going to make that available to everybody.
Fantastic. So what have we missed? Is there anything else that people should know about ScoreSmart?
A lot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? Give us one or two really salient points just to round out the exploration of what ScoreSmart offers and how people benefit from using it.
Well, actually, one thing we really haven't touched on, we've talked a little bit about the fact that our primary market is tutors and tutoring companies. Part of that service means white labeling everything. so that you can put it out into the market under your own brand. And, to the extent that companies are premium providers, they damn well better have a practice test and a score report and an interface that supports their brand positioning, i.e., I need the best and I need something that looks good, that's going to make my brand looks good, that's going to justify the price I'm charging for this stuff, right? Like it's got to be at that elite level. Like looking forward on the horizon, ACT comes out next week, basically. We've got ISEE live, but we've got another 10 tests we're adding so that we have, what did we say before we started? Nobody needs another login in their life.
Yeah.
So we want to be a one-stop shop. So we got ISEE in there. Drill banks are coming very quickly. That's one place where AI is potentially exciting, is like, yeah, AI for content is, fine, and decent starting point, but having some AI logic that connects your performance on a test to the
actual
necessary
material.
practice items that you need, like that's where AI actually gets really interesting, and where we will make use of it. So, yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch. Oh, here's another thing that we actually really didn't talk about that I'm like people are starting to use and appreciate, which is scoring the blue books. So there's the new blue book test they just put out 7 through 10, which we can now score. We score for free for all users. So we love Blue Book. It's made by College Board. They're well-produced tests, even if they do skew a little too easy. But all you get is a score, right?
So you're saying that students can input their answers into ScoreSmart.
No, even better. Literally 2 seconds.
Tell me
drag
more,
and
Neill.
drop the PDF score report from College Board. Drag and drop it into your
drag and drop that in, and then you produce a ScoreSmart report with part-time and everything?
Well, we can't
No,
do
we
part-time.
can't give part-time.
Of
Right.
course
Blue,
not.
Blue Book
Because with
doesn't
Blue
tell
Book
you
you
time per
can't.
question.
But
we do all
you
the
provide a
category
much more
analysis.
detailed analysis than those
Yes.
meager bars that College
Yes,
Board
so
provides?
it would be a detailed
hate those bars.
analysis as per their domains, but it gives you a detailed analysis of all the subcategories within the domains and how many questions you got within that domain. But we can't collect part-time on this because we can't collect the time per question, obviously,
of course,
of the
and-
Blue Book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is
But-
ultimately what I was saying earlier is the value of taking practice tests on a platform, because you get,
Yes.
it's just much more robust data than one can get in taking a test on paper, unfortunately. Right.
Well, and I mean, let's say you're using Blue Book, which you should because they're free and they're good, but either you're not analyzing them and you're just using the score, in which case you're spending a whole lot of student time with not a lot of insight coming out of it, or you are analyzing that Blue Book performance and someone's got to spend that time, right? And if it's a tutor, you got to pay that tutor. If it's not a tutor, or if it's a company, like someone's got to put that time in there. Let us do it for you. And let us put it out in, I think, a pretty sexy PDF report that's got your brand name at the top that you can go and then give to the parents or give to the school. We can even do a bulk upload, right? Like if you went to a school and collected 100 of these things for the entire junior class, you can put it in a zip file, automatically loaded into our service, and we will generate a score report for every single one of those kids. Right? So it's
That's
like
incredible.
part
Yeah,
of it is the insight, but part of it is just like the efficiency and the use case of running a tutoring company at scale.
In fact, this was asked to us by one of the tutoring companies, one of the founders, where she wanted to see the Blue Book results of her students along with the ScoreSmart test. And that's how this came about. So we said, okay, fine, we'll not only upload it for you and give you the analysis, but in our score history, where you see all the tests taken by the students, you will have the Blue Book test along with the ScoreSmart test seen on one screen.
So you can see the kids' entire testing history in one place.
One snapshot. Yeah.
And always like Sonya and I talk about this all the time. We don't want to be in the content business. We want to be in the brains and the smarts business. So yes, we have very high quality tests. Yes, we can score a Blue Book test, but we want to add smarts and insights to that because that's where we add value based on our history as tutors, right? It's not just about like anyone can do content, AI aside, like how do you make How do you move the ball forward for everybody, for smart tutors, for a brand, for a go-to-market strategy? We're tutors. We're supposed to be the experts. Let's be the experts.
Amy and I can attest that Sonya, Neill, you have been delivering smarts and insight everywhere you have applied yourselves. We would love to talk about ScoreSmart all day. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks
you
so
guys.
much for having us.
If listeners would like to learn more about ScoreSmart, where should they go?
Score-smart.com.
That's easy.
Or just drop us an email, right?
Awesome. We hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as we did. Be sure to join us for another fascinating topic and guest on the next Tests and the Rest.
Did you enjoy this episode as much as we did? Find expanded links and more for this and all of our episodes at our show page at testsandtherest.com. While you're there, be sure to explore everything the larger TestBright site has to offer, including real, expert, unbiased answers to the toughest admissions testing questions. Of course, we'd love for you to rate, review, and subscribe to Test and the Rest on your favorite podcast platform. If there's a topic or guest you'd like us to feature, just let us know and spread the word.